Welcome to the Vera show, where testimony, reality and truth meet you at the front door. Perspective to propose. Politics, religion, we talk about the real world we live in. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on the Vera show. From purpose, uplift, encourage, inspire, motivate, and let's talk about it on the Vera show. The Vera show.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited today with my guest, Miss Lynn Deen. How are you today?
I am very good, thank you.
Well, I am just so honored that you're here. And before we get into our deep conversation about root cause solutions, let me share a little bit about you to our audience. First of all, Lynn Deen worked for civil service as a program manager for over 30 years and have a master's in business administration. She learned management and communication skills are invaluable. When Lynn discovered vibrational healing, it moved her life to a whole new direction. She studied many styles of energy healing, and she is certified in acupressure and Chinese medicine. In 1998, her bioscan practice finds her, wait a minute, let me back that up. Her bioscan practice, which finds the root cause for illness and discomforts that are often not identified through other sources. Over the years, she has accumulated a wealth of knowledge on how better to find answers and solutions, and that is what we're going to talk about today. She sees clients primarily in California and Florida, working collaboratively with licensed acupuncture physicians. A life-changing job opportunity led her to be hired by the Guardian Ad Litem program in Florida. And we're going to talk about that. Now, this program offers so much training on working with children that had long-standing emotional stresses, forever changing the trajectory of their everyday living and happiness. And it is where she discovered true empathy and compassion for both the children and the parents. And we're going to talk about abuse and generational curses. But let me finish this by saying Lynn is now a certified clinical hypnotherapist and hypnotic life coach through the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners. All right, let's get started because I don't want to read all this. I want to talk to you because we have so much to talk about and not a whole lot of time to do it. So my first question to you is, what was your childhood like and how did it impact your life?
So my mother, she lived in ranches around Cheyenne, Wyoming in the 40s. And she had had one illegitimate child. And her mother said, if you have another, I'm going to take away the first one and I'm going to make sure you don't keep the second one either. So when she got pregnant again, she was friends with two sisters who also owned a ranch around Cheyenne. Her name was Marjorie. They were Hazel and Eunice. And she asked them if they wanted a baby. And they said, yes, they did. They had tried to adopt a boy in the system all those years ago. He had a cleft palate. He was going to have a hard time in life. They wanted him. But back then, unless you had a man in the house, it didn't matter what kind of man, good, bad, or indifferent, you couldn't adopt. So they figured this was their big chance. They were going to get a baby. And so they went out to Oregon. She had me. They just did an exchange, went back to Wyoming, and I grew up with those two women. And then they were driving home one day and a boy from another ranch flagged him down and said that his father was beating his big sister and he was afraid that he was going to kill her. Would they stop him? So they went, and my aunt had balls of steel. So she went in the house. There was actually a gun by the front door. She grabbed the gun. And sure enough, the guy was pulverizing this girl. And so he said, what are you doing? I can do anything I want to my kids in my home, which you could back then, which you could. And so he said, you need to just get off my property, leave me alone, leave me to my business here. And so as they were walking, Andy was walking back to the car, he came out with the girl, dragged her out onto the porch, threw her down the steps and said, if you want her so goddamn bad, just take her. And so they took her. And she lived with them till they all died. They're all dead now. So my family unit was the three women. And then the girl that had come to them, she had an illegitimate child that's 6 years younger than me. And I count her as my sister because we grew up together. The mom that raised me, Hazel, the mom that raised me, had two kids that are 12 and 14 years older than I was. So my aunt got a job as a buyer for the base exchange system at the Air Force Base in Cheyenne. So they started transferring around like military. And so we moved a lot. And the two older kids just stayed in Wyoming. They were older. The one girl was getting married. My brother worked for construction. They didn't want to move from Wyoming. So it was just the three women and Mary and I that spent all the years together. And what I learned from that was that women are strong. Women can do anything they want to do, but they've got to stand up for themselves, because if they don't, they're going to get trampled and ignored and not paid for what their value is. So it wasn't until years later, I was going to get married and my mom was mad at me. So all I had was a baptismal certificate Because back in the day, you could get pretty darn far in life with just a baptismal certificate, not having a birth certificate or anything, because I didn't have one. And so this is a long story, but anyway, when I wrote to get my baptismal certificate, the church, Catholic Church, sent me back a thing and said, next time ask for the right name. And it had two people. One was a cousin of the mother that raised me. So I thought, well, maybe that's how she got me, was, this cousin that had me.
Oh my goodness.
And then time went on, and when I worked for civil service, they had a thing where you could go to Iran, back when we were getting along with Iran, the Shah of Iran. You could go over for 6 months tours, and I thought that would be interesting. I would like that. I've always had an interest in other countries. And so I had to send for my birth certificate. And when I did, I said, I don't know what name this is going to be under. So I gave them all the names. And when I got it back, it had the 2 names that were on the birth certificate, but over where it had the little name printed, it had written Marjorie. And I thought, well, I wonder if, because Marjorie, my birth mother, had been in and out of the house with my sister, the person that was my sister, the older girl, but I never knew she was my mother nor my sister.
Wow.
So it wasn't until my 40s that we figured out where Marjorie was living. And it was so interesting because we were in Sacramento at the time. Ken had got stationed at McClellan. We were in Sacramento, and it turned out she was living in Sacramento. And so she had one more child, a brother. I had another half brother that was younger. He was living there. So what would the chances of that be after umpteen decades to find out you were living in the same town as your bio mom?
Wow.
And when I met her, she was the nicest woman. She was lovely, but she had been bullied by her family. And I think that if some guy treated her nice, bought her a few drinks, things happen then.
Yes.
And so she chose poorly several times, but she was she was in her 70s, and she was taking night classes, just not for credit. In California, you could just take them if you were a certain age. Audit them. She was just auditing classes. She was just a lovely woman. So I met my brother. He was living next door to her, and I'll go into my first story. He was a raging alcoholic. That's because when she finally did marry, she married a raging alcoholic.
Wow. And before we get into that story, first of all, your story is very unique and very different. And how did you feel when you realized your biological mother did not live that far from you? How did that impact you?
I never held it against her when I finally figured it all out, because I figured she probably thought that was for the best.
Yeah.
And she thought that if her mother found out, they'd take me away, they would have put me in the system. My life would have been terrible.
Wow.
And so she did the best she could under the circumstances. So I never held any animosity for her. So when I found out she was close, I was actually anxious to meet her. And then she went back with me for Christmas that year. She went back with me, and she and the 2 sisters talked about all kinds of stuff that they'd never been able to talk about with anybody for decades.
Wow.
It was really nice. And that first Christmas, my older sister came. She was living in Nebraska. So it was good. So I've remained close to the siblings, and all of those women are gone now. I'm 77, so I'm one of the oldest in my family now.
And you don't look 77, let me tell you. Not at all. But so, okay, what an experience. But you know what? The beauty of it is you have no ill feelings. That experience for some people could have left them bitter angry, and all of that stuff, but not you. And you
No.
were able to just embrace what life you had and love it because you had love. You had love.
Mhm.
And so, regardless, families are made up in many different ways, but as long as there's that love, you can overcome anything and everything, which brings us to the topic of our show,
Okay.
root cause solutions. Now, you are a vibrational healer. So
I
let's
am.
first talk about that. What is vibrational healing?
Well, when you get to the bottom line of molecules and atoms and nano thingies, you get to the bottom line, there are frequencies. And frequencies are what make things what they are. So our bodies are just a mass of frequencies that make up every single part of us. Thoughts have frequencies to exist. Anything that's not innate to us has a frequency. So bacteria, mold, chemicals, viruses, all have frequencies. And so when a person comes to me, this is my logo. You're like a puzzle.
Here, let me pull your logo up because I do have it here. So let me pull it up as we're talking about it. Yeah, here it is. Okay, let us go to the side. Hold on a minute. Okay, so explain this.
If you can name the root cause, you can find solutions. If you can't name it or don't know it, it's really hard to find a solution. Really? For
Yes.
sure. So when people come and they go, I've been to doctors, I have irritable bowel syndrome. And I go, well, what did they say is causing it? They'll go, well, they never say. They just say I have irritable bowel syndrome and I'm going to have to stay on meds for forever and a day. Or I have arthritis. And I say, what is the root cause of that arthritis? Because it could be many things. And they'll go, I don't know. Doctors don't really often tell you what the underlying cause of sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they just don't check. Sometimes they don't do the tests that they could do to find out. But they want to put you on a lot of meds that you often have to be on forever that have a lot of side effects because they don't know the root cause. And if you don't know the root cause, you can't find a solution. So the bioscan testing that I do finds root causes. It tells me how your frequencies are doing, and then it finds frequencies that should not be there. And if I know those frequencies that should not be there, the specific bacteria, the specific chemicals, the specific mold, then I can try to find and help you find solutions and make some remedies for stuff.
That is amazing. And both those things that you mentioned, I've been diagnosed with. IBS. I used to, and I don't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being, first of all, the root cause was stress. And, whenever I am under a lot of stress, it hits me in my stomach. Um, and if I can control my stress, then I can control. As a matter of fact, I had tests done. Oh man, years after I was diagnosed. And when you've got stomach and intestinal issues, the the residuals of that usually are still indicated
They
in
are.
your body.
They are.
Well, when I had a test done for my stomach, I've had colitis, IBS, and an ulcerated um, colitis.
Well, and you
None
probably,
of those things showed up in my stomach when I had that test done. None of them.
but often there is there's a bacteria called H. pylori. It causes all that stuff. And there's
Wow.
ways to get rid of it, but doctors just don't take the time often to figure out what it is so that they can really do something. So my message to people that come to see me, because so often they'll come and they'll say, my doctor says I have this and there's nothing they can do. There is no cure for this, so I'm just going to have it the rest of my life. And I've got to take these medications that are making me feel bad and have all of these side effects. And I've got to take other medication for the medication.
Mm-hmm.
And so my message to them is, there is hope. If I can find the root cause, then we can look for solutions.
Wow. And medications. I am so adverse to medications
Well,
because
sometimes you do need them, but even at that, one of the things that the bioscan does is you can bring in any medications or supplements that you're taking, and I can test you, and your body will say whether it likes that. And then I can test to see how much you should take, how much your body wants of it.
wow.
That is a fantastic thing that this testing does. People
Well,
bring in.
how does it work?
Well, it has a really sophisticated program that has giant lists of bacteria, mold, chemicals, viruses, hormones, food, you name it, and there are lists in it. And behind every word, there is a frequency, because you can put stuff in machines that will tell you the frequency. So I'm not really checking for asbestos or lead acetate. I'm saying, which of these frequencies do you have, body? And it will tell us. So if there's a frequency input-output machine, and then in one hand, I wet your hand and you hold this copper bar because that conducts energy. And then with the other hand, I have this copper probe and I find acupoints, because I'm trying to access the meridian system that they use in Chinese medicine. They use it for a wholly different purpose. But for me, that meridian system, which runs 24 hours a day, where one ends, another one begins, so it's all connected, those are like big running rivers of binary or frequency data. So when I tap into that database, your body can speak.
Wow.
It can speak and tell me what it likes, what it doesn't like, what it has, what it doesn't have.
Wow. Can you give me some examples? We kind of talked about this before the show. Can you give me some examples of your work and how you've been able to really transform lives?
I have. So my brother, the alcoholic, Jerry called me he was in Sacramento and I was in Ohio. And he was so sick, he could barely talk. And then, like I said, they said they were just going to release him. And when I made them tell me, because they had not told him what he had, they said, you have terminal liver cirrhosis and you will live only for 4 to 6 months, and then you're going to die. And when I finally made them, because I was trying to get him to move from California to Ohio so I could be with him. And he wasn't really going for that because he didn't know that he was dying. He didn't know that it was that serious.
Oh, wow.
And so when they told him, he cried. He sat there and cried in their office. And so I said, well, we're going to take you back. And I just got this testing machine. So we're going to see what we can find. So when we went back, we took him to a doctor there. And the doctor was reading his paperwork. And right in the middle of it, he goes, oh, man. Now, what doctor should do that?
Right.
And I said, what? And he said, you're going to die in 4 to 6 months.
Wow.
He hadn't even done a test. He was just taking the word of the doctors and Sacramento. And I said, well, we're going to see about that, because I have some testing stuff. We're going to find out some root causes and find out what's going on. So we did, and we found all kinds of liver stuff, but we found bacteria and parasites and tons of stuff, emotional stuff. And so Jerry started following the protocols, and Jerry did not just live 4 to 6 months. He lived for another 25 years.
Wow. All because of the testing and the
Yes,
remedies.
and also that somebody gave him hope and said,
Yes.
and so when you give people hope, they will try new things. They will do some different things that might not have been in their paradigm before, because they are scared and they are depressed, situationally depressed about their situation. And I have 2 people in Florida, because while I was working for Guardian Ad Litem, I was testing people every evening and all weekend. I had 2 people who, she was so sick she couldn't get out of bed. So I talked to her and I said, I think you have Lyme's disease. And if you have Lyme's disease, then you almost always have chronic fatigue, Epstein-Barr cytomegalovirus. I think that's why you can't get out of bed, and that's why you ache. Every bone and joint in your body aches. So I sent tinctures home with her that I made to help with those things. And she came in, I was going there every 2 months. She probably came to me 4 months later. She'd been taking my stuff, but she could get up out of bed and she could come and see me.
What did you give her exactly?
It was stuff to help with Epstein-Barr cytomegalo, and it was stuff to help with Lyme's disease.
Was it a natural product?
They are frequencies. They are frequencies of products that help to get rid of Lyme's disease and virus stuff like Epstein-Barr.
Wow.
So she now owns her own accounting business.
Wow.
But they were just going to leave her in that bed to die.
And see, the moral of what we're talking about right now is, if you can give people, like you said, a sense of hope, and this could not be a more opportune time to talk about that, because we have such a sense of hopelessness going on right now in our country as a whole, that what you're offering and what you're talking about, everybody needs to hear this and understand that you can't take what doctors say. You can't take even your diagnosis and feel hopeless.
Yeah, it just makes me furious when they say that. Now, sometimes by the time I see people, they're far into some illness and it's really tough to ever pull them back out. But it doesn't mean that you can't try. It doesn't mean that you can't work with them for working with their emotions and other things that can help them have the remainder of their life be meaningful for them.
And so you've been able to even help people that were near death.
I have. And a lot of it is, so sometimes you really do need medication. Sometimes you need heart medications. I'm not saying that you never need a doctor, but sometimes it's just not as hopeless as they portray what it is. And I did work with one doctor. Mostly doctors are going, don't do any of that because that's
Of course.
useless stuff.
Right.
And they don't take one class in herbs or anything that's natural in all of medicine.
Why is that?
Because the schools are paid for by who?
Pharmaceuticals.
Big pharma. And so they don't know anything about it, but all they know is to say it's not going to work. And it could make you worse. And if you don't follow my protocol and you do some other stuff, it could ruin my work and then you could die.
Wow.
So the other thing is that doctors don't have much time to talk to you. You know, when you go in, And they're usually now they're usually behind their computer and they're typing. They're
While
not
they're talking to you.
yeah, they're not really having a conversation, really. They're not listening. So doctors, I think, often don't listen to women as much as they listen to men. And working in Florida, they really don't listen to farmers or auto mechanics or people that they think can't even understand what they're talking about.
Wow.
So I had another guy he was only early 40s. He was a diesel mechanic, and he had rheumatoid arthritis and irritable bowel. And they said he just have to be on meds forever. So I tested him, and lo and behold, he had a horrible, horrible, significant allergy to the nightshades, tomatoes and peppers. That causes arthritis symptoms.
Say that again.
The nightshades, if you have a sensitivity to them, they can cause rheumatoid arthritis symptoms.
And those things are tomatoes, peppers.
Any kind of peppers, white potatoes, eggplant.
Oh my goodness.
So Jason was my star pupil because he wanted off of that stuff. He did not want to be on that stuff. So he stopped cold turkey. I said, Jason, yours is so bad that if you see a picture in a magazine, flip the page or tear the page out. If you see a billboard on the highway, avert your eyes. Just looking at a tomato.
Oh my goodness.
Within 2 months of him not doing any nightshades, he was off all of his meds.
Wow.
And his wife was a nurse who doesn't believe in any of the stuff that I do. But Jason said, Ivy says to tell you thank you for finding that because it's changed Jason's life.
Wow.
So sometimes you don't usually often get a real big silver bullet like that, but you can. I've had two people. I had a Puerto Rican woman that was the same thing. And, Puerto Ricans put nightshades in everything. They put it in their eggs in the morning. It's in every sauce they eat. It's on their sandwiches. And all the women in her family had rheumatoid arthritis. And I said, I don't think it's rheumatoid arthritis. I think they all have a problem with nightshades. So the testing is really good because it can find specific stuff. But overall, generally speaking, for some tests, you don't have to be where the person is, but for mine, you do. But I have done this for 30 years. Wow. I was way ahead of my time. And so if you can tell me if I can have an interview over the phone, I can make drops that often can help you without seeing you.
Wow. Now, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you were a guardian ad litem and that changed your life.
It changed my life entirely. So I had moved to Florida to work at an acupuncture school, but I only stayed there for a little while. And then I had the chance to get a job as a recruiter for guardian ad litem, and they represent kids that have been taken away for neglect, abuse, and abandonment. And so I worked as a volunteer for about 6 months, and then they had an opening for the recruiter, and I got that job. And I worked there for 10 years. And it changes your life because you look at these kids and they're taking on all they take on all the blame for their misfortune. They think it's their fault that they're getting beaten. It's their fault that they're not getting fed. It's their fault that their parents disappear for days on end and leave them with their baby brother and sister in a hotel room. And they don't think that they're enough. They don't feel seen and heard. They feel out of control because they have no control over anything except their behavior. So sometimes they act out and they do stuff because that's the one thing they can control. And so it changed my politics because they were trying to take, one of the parties was trying to take away after school care, school lunches. And I'm thinking that's the only meal these kids get.
Yes.
They is the stuff they get at the schools. And they did offer counseling, but we'll get to that because the counseling to me was not very successful. They would do talk therapy, and the kids just learned how to say the stuff that they thought was, what they were supposed to say. I don't think it did very much. And then once I studied hypnotherapy, now I know why. Because you have to work with your subconscious, because the subconscious is where your memories are and your emotions are. And that's where all these reels are. That's where all these emotions that have been playing since you were under age 10 are playing and influencing everything that you do, every decision you make, every choice you make, your relationships. And so when you go to talk therapy, where are you? You are not working with your subconscious. Usually it's in your left brain. You're talking about things in the past and how things happen. Or if you go to weight management, you're talking about what your plan is going to be, what days you're going to eat, whether you're going to do paleo or keto or intermittent fasting. It's all in the left brain. And you're never getting to the things that are, why are you eating? What is called,
which is the right brain. That's right.
Thing. That's the right brain stuff. So when you do hypnotherapy, you do different techniques, but you can go back and do age regression and have the person go back to the first time that this issue came up and what happened. And oftentimes it's not something that they did. Sometimes it's just something that they heard. So I had one girl who had problems. Her mother and father had divorced when she was young. And when she dropped back down, she dropped into a scene where she was being cared for by her grandparents. And her mother was late picking her up. And so she's just 5 years old. And she's sitting there and her grandparents just light into the mother. You don't care about this child. You don't love this child. If you loved her, you would be on time. She doesn't mean anything to you. And here's a 5-year-old taking that all right to heart. And then wonders why she has a hard time with her mom. So sometimes it's not anything that a child does. It's just, I had a girl that had eating disorder. And when she dropped down into a scene, it was a scene with her mother and stepfather. They were eating dinner. And the stepfather looks at her, and she's only 5 or 6, looks at her and says, "Don't you eat another bite, you little heifer, because you're going to get fat and no one will love you." So what do you think? What do you think her subconscious did? It said, "Oh my gosh, we can't have that. We can't have this child not being loved. What can we do?" Well, we can just make it so that she doesn't want to eat. And then that reel is playing for the next, all her life until something is done, until she figures out how she can redirect her subconscious to something that is actually useful for her. And then those things usually get reinforced along the way, those things that happen when you're young. So she was a flyer. She was a cheerleading flyer, where the one that they would throw up in the air. And so when we dropped down into another scene, it was the other girls saying how they didn't want her to be the flyer because she was too fat.
Oh, God.
She says, so it just reinforced the earlier thing. So until you can work with the subconscious and try to change some of those perceptions, talk therapy isn't going to really cut it.
Right. So root cause,
whether it's psychological or whether it's physical, is the key.
So if people understand the root cause of their current situation, then they are able to, in fact, do something about it.
And working with their subconscious to help them in a different way than it has. because it made those decisions when she was like 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then it thought it had solved the problem. Your subconscious thought, I did good today. I solved that problem. My child has nightmares. I'm just going to make it so she doesn't sleep. And so there's insomniacs for the rest of their life. It thinks it has done its job. But your subconscious is not logical, and it doesn't look at the long-term effects. So you have to have conversations. So there's another technique that you use called parts work, where you can go and call forth the part that is involved with that issue. And you can ask it questions. You can say, why are you giving your person permission to be fat?
But that's
and
only,
you can speak for it.
but that can only be done through your guidance or through the guidance of someone like you.
For some of that, but you can, I'm going to start teaching classes on self-hypnosis. There's things that you can do to help in your meditations, because in meditation, that's really where you get in hypnosis. You're not asleep. You're not someplace where I could do anything I wanted, because you can't remember. You remember everything. And so you want to get to that place where you kind of get in a nice, good meditation, or that place when you're just waking up in the morning, where you could say something if you wanted to, but it's a real sweet spot. It's kind of nice to just lay there and you're not asleep, you're not awake. You can hear things. That's where you want to get in hypnosis. So your body already knows where that spot is. So you can, there's a lot of actually on YouTube. If you find some good hypnotherapist guys, you can use some of the stuff that's even on YouTube.
Wow.
It'll lead you into hypnosis.
Really?
Yeah.
So if a person wanted to do something like that, they would just put in a search for hypnosis
for a subject. And there's better or worse, so you kind of have to look around. There's a really good English guy named Paul McKenna.
I'm going to put that in the comments. Paul McKenna.
Paul McKenna. He's English.
MCKA or CA?
Kenna, I think. Kenna, McKenna. And there's another guy that I like named Michael Sealey, Sealey, I think.
Spell the last name again.
Sealey.
Okay, let me go back. YouTube.
Michael's Sealey. So he has ones for sleep, ones for meditation. Michael Sealey hypnosis. Yeah, he has quite a few good ones, and I just happen to like his really well. But
have you thought about doing something like this yourself?
I'm going to start teaching self-hypnosis classes.
Awesome. Well, listen, people, how you can get in touch with Lynn, go to her website, which is https://Lynn, and that's LYNN as in Nancy, Deen, D as in dog, E as in Edward, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy.com. You want to check out her website. You also want to listen to some of the stories of how she has impacted lives. And this is amazing. So
I can do hypnosis over Zoom.
Oh, you can?
It is, because you mostly have your eyes closed and you just follow my voice. You can do that at home. So you just need a quiet place where you're not going to be interrupted for an hour and a half sessions. And usually it takes, they say 6 to 8 sessions for any given issue, Weight takes more because it has got so many emotional entanglements to it.
Wow.
Uh,
So, how can anyone, in addition to the hypnosis, how can people take advantage of the other things that you can do to help them understand the root cause of situations? And you had shared with me about a guy that was a procrastinator.
yeah,
And
he came
as
in
a
with the issue of procrastination. And so I talked to him. I'm already getting a picture when he just is explaining about his family and stuff. His dad had never given him any indication that he was ever successful. Because he got good grades. If he got all A pluses and 1A, he was a failure. If he was salutatorian instead of valedictorian, he was a failure. And so he never grew up ever thinking that he was successful. And so it turned out his procrastination was a fear of failure. It
So
wasn't,
he
yeah,
wouldn't
there was
do
a reason for that.
anything. He'd put
Yeah.
off stuff.
Yeah, because if you
Wow.
don't do something, you can't fail at it.
Wow. And that all stemmed from his father.
Yes. Well, usually when things start when you're under 10, it's usually mother, father, step parents, grandparents. It's usually someone close to you.
That's why, studies show that 60% of adults with unresolved issues, those issues stem from their childhood. And so if we understand that, and you can come in and help them identify what it is, then that can transform lives.
It can. And I've been married twice, and I now understand some of the issues were my issues. So if you would ask me before hypnosis, I would, because we had to practice on each other, so we did a lot of sessions. If you would have said, "Are you enough?" I would have said, "Yeah, I'm enough. I'm a woman of substance. I'm good." Are you seen and heard? Yeah. Are you a lot of stuff? And so when I did the hypnosis stuff, I found out, oh no, from when I was a kid, didn't feel like I was enough. I didn't feel like I was seen and heard. I didn't feel like I was in control. And that's what was playing in the back. It wasn't the stuff that I wanted it to be now. It was the other stuff. And so when my husband would say things or do things that would make me feel less than, it would out of proportion hurt my feelings or make me furious. And it wasn't, not saying he should have said some things that he said, but nonetheless, a lot of it was my reaction because of the things that had happened in my childhood. So I think it gave me a much better understanding of myself and what some of my triggers are and some of the things that I needed to do when you're talking about people need to have self-love.
Mm-hmm.
You also need to have self-love, thinking you're enough, knowing that you're a perfect person. You just get some doo-doo on you along the way, but underneath all that, you're a perfect person.
Yes.
Perfect.
Let me ask you, because you said was it after both the marriages, or
Yeah.
do you think, had you made this revelation before the marriages ended, that they might have worked?
It's possible. It's possible. But a lot of marriages, it's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street. It is.
So I could explain till the cows came home that when Ken said something to me, why I reacted, could he not say that? Could he do a little bit of change himself?
Right.
Then it's kind of, if they don't change, then that makes you mad too. So. But it does make a difference. It makes a difference in my relationship with my friends, in my work, with bosses, all kinds of stuff that I would view differently now.
That's amazing. And see, awareness precedes change. And when we know better, we do better.
When we
But
know better,
there
we do.
are, yes, but there are things that we have to realize,
Connect the dots.
connect
Most
the
of the
dots.
time when we really get it, it's like, well, I knew all that stuff, but I didn't connect the dots. It helps you connect dots and figure out what triggers there are for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if nothing else, when you go into a new relationship, you're going to know some of the stuff that is not going to work with a guy if they're.
Absolutely. Setting boundaries, knowing what your
Yeah,
boundaries are
yeah,
and
exactly.
what your must-haves are. I just
Exactly.
did a session with teenagers that are involved in relationships. And that's exactly what I did with them, help them to recognize their values and what's important to them so that they, at an early age, can begin to identify immediately when someone's not right for them, to avoid
Exactly.
and eliminate some of this domestic violence and intimate partner violence kinds of things that are going on. If we can start at an early age teaching teenagers these same things that you learned and understood and recognized, you know.
At 60 instead of at 17. It is one of the girl that had the grandparents that said her mother didn't care about her.
Mm-hmm.
She was in a not a good relationship, and she came back to me about, by the fourth session, she said, I broke up with my boyfriend because he was no good for me. And she wouldn't have done that.
Right.
She would have stuck with him.
Right. See, so what you're doing then is so beneficial and so important. And I want to encourage those that may be listening now or listening later to get in touch with her and have a conversation with her to see how she can help you deal with root causes and find the solutions for root causes that's causing us harm mentally,
To
physically,
not to be
emotionally.
able to live our best lives.
Right. So that we can live our best lives. This is powerful. You, it really is. And what made you get in this track of life versus, I mean, because you were doing other things before you got into this. What was it that caused you to move into this vein?
Well, I didn't do any metaphysical stuff, I think, except astrology when I was all through my life till I was in my 40s. And then a friend of mine came and stayed with me and my husband for a while. She just did. So she asked me to go with her to a Reiki class, energy healing class.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, I'll go with you, because I was going to go for the entertainment value, not
Okay.
because I thought it would do anything for me. And when I went, lo and behold, at that class, I was able to start feeling energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh my God, then the whole world opened up. And I thought, we have this whole energy system, the meridians, the chakras, our aura. We have this whole system that needs help, and nobody is, most people don't even believe in it. And I was just obsessed. And then I think in life, if you're old enough and you look back, you look at pivotal things that happen that were just meant to be. And so my best friend, this flyer floated in for the Acupressure Institute in Berkeley, and I was still in Ohio. And so my best friend and I, and it was because the other woman that I went to the Reiki class, she had moved back to California, and all the metaphysical junk mail stopped except this one thing that floated in 4 months after she left. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to learn how to do acupressure. I want to know how about the meridians. I want to know. And so Sandy and I went out and did that. And then later on, and it was just that one piece of mail that floated in absence of any other mail like that. And then my best friend had a sister that was an owner in an acupuncture school in Gainesville, Florida. And she would go down and see her sister. And she came back one time and she said, Lynn, I did this testing. It was fabulous. It found all kinds of stuff that I hadn't told them about and some things that I needed to know about that I didn't know about. And I think you would like it. And I think you would be really good at it. What is that, 90 seconds? 90 seconds. And then I immediately forgot it because I had no idea what she was talking about, how to find anything out about it. And about 5 months later, we were at a big, huge metaphysical fair in Columbus, Ohio, with like 800 vendors. I mean, it was massive. And I was walking along on my break, and I saw this booth with this machine in it. And I thought, I wonder if that's what Sandy was talking about. Well, it was. It was a machine I have now.
Wow.
But if she had not had that 90-second conversation, I would have not walked in that booth.
Wow. Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing. So you have to listen. You have to pay attention. And then you have to be brave enough to do something about it when you find it, because, it was expensive. It was daunting to begin with for me. But God and the universe presents us with some really great opportunities if we're willing to pay attention.
Pay attention. Absolutely.
And be brave.
Pay attention and be brave. And we're almost out of time.
No.
I am going to give you the floor and let you just pour your heart out for the next couple of minutes and just share whatever it is that you want our audience to know before we leave.
Well, whether you talk to me about hypnotherapy, there are good hypnotherapists all over the place. You kind of have to sometimes click with them, but don't be afraid of hypnosis. It won't make you bark like a dog or quack like a duck. They can't, your subconscious will not let you do anything that's not in your wheelhouse, that would be not in your best interest. So open your minds to some new ideas about ways to help. And Western medicine has its place, but there's a ton of other stuff out there that is really valuable. My friend that works with me does, it's called microcurrent. And it's a device where you can program in specific frequencies, and it helps with inflammation, with scar tissue, with calming. It's fabulous. There's just a lot of fabulous modalities if you pay attention.
Wow.
And keep your mind open.
Wow. Which brings me to another thought that I had. We were talking about these frequencies and this energy. We are spiritual beings living in a mortal body. And so that lends support to what it is that you're doing, because you're tapping into the energy, which is our spirit.
It is. And when I work on people, I call in divine energy. Divine energy to me is filled with wisdom and healing. And so when I do some of the hypnosis, I will have them feel like they are finding all the stuff they no longer need in their body, pulling it up and then sending it out. And then that's created a lot of space for good stuff.
Yes.
So then I call in the divine energy, and I say, okay, we're going to call in the white sparkly divine energy. That's going to find all of those vacancies and they're going to be filling those holes that were left by the things you no longer need with wisdom, healing, guidance, love.
And on that note, we've got to end the show. But
anybody that lives in the Sacramento area, call me. And if
yes,
you don't, I'll be
please.
happy to talk to anybody just in general.
Yes. Well, go to her website. And again, that's https://LynnDeen.com. Check her out. Check out her website. This has been a great show for helping people understand that there are ways that we can heal ourselves actually through
It is. It's all
the
healing.
work.
This is all self-healing.
Self-healing.
My friend says you're your own med bed.
Yes, absolutely.
You need a little guidance sometimes, a little help, but all in all, we are divine creatures.
Yes, and we can be healed through self-awareness and understanding that energy that's within us that can be positive and loving and kind and all the things that she can help pull out of us. So
Well,
listen, thank you so much. I'm going to pull you
thank you.
down.
This is my first podcast, so this
Yeah,
is a big deal for me.
Thank you. Well, it was an honor to have you on, and knowing that I'm the first podcaster that you've worked with, I'm honored. So don't go anywhere. Just hold on a minute, okay? And I'll be right back with you. Well, listen, I hope that you glean something from this and that you understand that we are spiritual beings living in a mortal body. So if we can understand that energy, our energy, and the energy that we're transmitting, and energies that may be making us sick, that we may be able to heal ourselves. So think about it. Check out Lynn, and please subscribe to the Vera Thomas Show. And you can donate. It's scrolling down along the screen at Cash App, Instill Great. That's Cash App, $ Instill Great, or Venmo at VT1117. Please support what I'm doing, and God bless you. And we will see you on Thursday. I have another guest. Robert Budwig is coming on, and he's got some positive things to talk about as it relates to possibilities of prosperity. Possibilities of prosperity. So check out that show on Thursday. God bless you, and we'll see you then.
Let's talk about it on the Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show.